Welcome on in to the Bobby Carpenter Show. Thank you for being here with us today. My goodness, we got a big show planned up for you today. We got our guy, Bill Bennett of the Sporting News, who joins us every Tuesday. Going to be locked in here with us today, so we're excited about that. We got a little tailgate talk. We're going to have some headlines. We got some great questions that are coming in, Schlegel, because now, you're starting to get into the meat of the season. You're getting into the conference slate. You've got Ohio State going to Michigan State. I mean, you're having conference foes all over the place as we're finally through the first 3-4 weeks of the college football season when you kind of turn the page. It's the Bob Seger week, Schlegel. You get to turn the page. I know that you're all about that. So you get to turn the page into some big-time competition, the big-time games. So we got some good questions coming to us. Tailgate Talk brought to you by our friends over Real Truck. A lot of news around college football. Obviously, Ohio State took care of Marshall. Talked a lot about that yesterday. Any news, is there anything you want to get to right off the jump as far as pressing news with college football? I know you're pretty hot and heavy on some of those Diddy stories that have infested my timeline. And since I've liked a couple of them and sent them a lot to our group text, I can't seem to get rid of them now. That's all I seem to get. The algorithm has penetrated my feed and just in my mind.
Ooh.
What we got going on with you on a Tuesday, though, sir?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know. Bumpy, the mediation is bumpy, sweating. But you know what, though? Hey, just the fact.
Like a Diddy party, Schlegel.
Just the fact that I just keep going back. Ohio State, 4 explosive plays, all over 40. Guys getting it done. I mean, yeah, one of the best things I saw was Michigan self-professing Harvard of the West, Bob.
Oh, you know what? Let's get to that.
You want to put a pin in that? You want to put a pin in? You want to do it right now?
We'll start off with this because if you want, we got Jake Butt coming on tomorrow.
Yeah,
Fine, Pickerington,
we should
North
ask him
alum.
about this.
Yeah, he played at Michigan. Good dude, works at Big Ten Network now. He's going to join, talk to us a little about what he's seeing through the Big Ten, the games he's calling, also about his alma mater. Huge win for Michigan at USC. Maybe a little unconventional as everybody watched. When you throw the ball for 32 yards, but all that matters is you end up getting the dub. So they ended up getting the dub. However, folks at Michigan, they kind of like to turn their nose up to Ohio. And listen, okay, I get it. It's a very prestigious school. It's got a lot of tradition to it. There's a lot of things. But they always proclaim themselves, Schlegel, the Harvard of the Midwest. So, Pat, we'll throw this up here. And if you're going to proclaim yourself the Harvard of the Midwest, you always have to make sure you check it because they say Lincoln Riley still thinks you're quiet. Now, Lincoln Riley, head coach at USC. And the only problem with it, Schlegel, is the multiple types of your. You've got Y-O-U-R, which is possessive, and then Y-O-U''RE, which is the combination of you and R together, which is Lincoln Riley still thinks you are is what it should be, not you're quiet, like you're not holding in your quietness. And so we're going to throw that on the Jumbotron. I don't know if the person running it has a Michigan degree or not, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. Hey, and the fact that I love reading the comments. The billboard can only fit so many letters, but then they literally next went and fixed it because it is just like a TV. It is just like a monitor, which means you can adjust the font size. That's where they have the bigger A and then the medium size A and then the little a. That's called font. And you can select what size. You can even select, what type of font that I want, right? Do I want Helvetica New or Arial or Times New Roman, right? Which that might be the font on that. And then the size, and they flipped it and said, no, you are. And they also made it yellow as though maybe it's for Michigan because, the maize in the blue, but I don't know. Autocorrect, but I just thought that was quite comical. And here's the thing, though. And I was talking to somebody down here in Florida who is a huge Michigan fan. Huge, right? And all I could say about that win for them was that's their identity.
Yeah.
And when you got to go win the game 70-plus yards away from the end zone, and they know that you're going to run it every single time, and if they do throw it, it's going to be an incomplete pass more than likely, but they're just going to still run the football. Honestly, it gets you excited for the game, because that literally is what's going to be. Stop the run the ball. Their process is we got to control the clock. We got to run it. You can't have turnovers. They had in that game, gave USC the ball in great field position. You can't do that when you run that style of offense, and their defense has to play lights out all the time. So anyways, I thought that was comical because they're a self-proclaimed Harvard of the West. I love being a dual Buckeye. Probably should have been a doctor by the amount of years. I'm not a Cam Rising level.
But you could be the jock doc, Schlegel. That's the thing. I mean,
oh my gosh,
in your family, your dad, the jock doc.
Listen, I mean, those are aspirational goals, Bob. And God bless my dad. He has a doctorate. I don't know what he is.
Like your uncle was the president of Creighton. Like, what are we talking about?
I know. And I got aunts and uncles that are both professors and deans at universities, and they all got doctorates. My wife's like, why would you like to go get a doctorate? I was like, why not? Everybody else in my family has it. I don't know. I probably should. That way I can just be like,
could you be called the squat doc? How about that?
No, that's reserved for Mr. Hatfield himself, the doctor of squat. But I would love it, and I already know what my thesis would be on in the realm of human performance. So I already got that going for me. I just need to find an institution that can give me a doctorate online with the crazy schedule that is my life.
So here's the question. I was trying to get Coach 𝗟𝗡𝗘 to put together this mix. At some point in time, I go, before you retire, Mick, whenever that is, you need to get your doctorate. And here's the thesis. I've talked to a lot of people about this that work in football, whether it's on the sports performance side, the medical side, whatever, to really get to know the players pretty well. And I asked them this because someone, Schlegel, that we know who's worked at Ohio State for a long time had this hypothesis, because they always say football players, like, the CTE, the head trauma, makes them crazy, this and that. He goes, his argument was, I think like moths to a flame, combative sports, most notably football, because that's the world that he lived in, attract those type of people. So it's not the fact that football and like wrestling, boxing, MMA makes those guys what they are. They always were that, and they just kind of like a mouse through a maze found the cheese, and that's where they wanted to live. And that's why you see, we'll get into, like, my man John Simon, he had a roommate that may or may not have actually was convicted of killing his mom, that then came back and lived with him at Ohio State. Nate Ebner and I at Ohio State, into the Patriots, Schlegs, we played with Aaron Hernandez and Sergio Brown, Sergio Brown also played with Jack Mueller at the Colts, and talked to him about that, who may or may not have killed his mom in the backyard. So I don't know if it like turns you into that, or maybe you were always that, and it just kind of gives you like that little
the outlet
trying to get out of the egg, and you're allowed to escape.
Well, I'm gonna take away those like drastic scenarios that you just mentioned, because those are
we have a list. We're putting together a list of teams.
Are you guys doing that right now, guys? Just so everybody knows, that's what happens when you're an older guy. And it was super fun. Back when I was coaching there, we had Eddie and James was still playing, and a couple other guys from the league, Brian Peters. We had an old man group. We'd all work out together. And now you got Bobby and Nate and John. And in there, you might find a day where, you're hypothesizing what's the best band. Is it, Foo Fighters or somebody else? Is it Limp Bizkit? Like, who has the best like rock song, and like just voting, right? And there might be something that you can't say on air that's being discussed. But to the moth to the flame, Bob, it's that old cliche that you never mess with wrestlers, because they just are inherently weird, right? Like, why am I going to go practice that amount of time, cut weight, and it's just me versus that guy wearing a singlet and I'm bleeding all over the place? Like, I wrestled from the age of 6 till the age of 18. It's just
rub it on another dude.
But it's the combat. It's 1v1. It's I'm better than you. The physicality of it. Like, honestly, I go back and look at, I'm 43, but when called upon, can I be Waffle House ready? Can I be gas station ready? I don't know. Bob, just like you, maybe they call you out of the woody and say, hey, we need you to run scout team. Can you give us a little bit of scout team? Why are you running half gassers, Bob, at 41 years old? Because I can. And what if I have to? Why am I still running and jumping? Because if I have to, it's just there. Do we have traumatic brain injuries. I don't know. CT, I don't know, but I've been like that. I've been like this my entire life. I introduced myself to people when I was 4 years old as Anthony Schlegel fullback. Like, hey, how you doing? Truly thought that was my middle name, right? Like that was like part of my name. Then it became Anthony Schlegel linebacker. But it is what it is. You're a product of your environment.
Anthony Schlegel.
And my dad's crazy.
And your dad. That's the jock doc you're talking about, Schleg. Don't speak ill of him on the show.
No, I can't.
Listen, attention, folks. Before we get to Bill Bender, I want to tell you this. Parents, athletes, anyone out there listening, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards. This is a very timely read, Schlegs. Trusted by professional athletes and NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to absorb high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. They didn't have Export mouth guards when we were growing up, Schlegs. We did the very best we could with those little thin pieces of plastic. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of custom protection, including patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit and 3D printed to your smile to fit well. That means better protection, better performance, maximum comfort, and clear communication so you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby. Get 15% off of these wonderful mouth guards. Export, protect what matters most. Bill Bender, Sporting News, coming up next.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
Welcome back into the show. And as always on Tuesdays, we get to welcome our guy from the Sporting News, one of the great ones, does a great job covering college football, some NFL, some basketball, and the winner does it all. Give him a follow on Twitter at BillBender92 because Reggie White, well, it's his favorite player, and he wore 92 as a wide receiver in high school. Bill, thank you for joining the program.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I might have to change it to Malik Willis's number after the Packers the last 2 weeks. But, yeah, I was pretty thrilled that they got 2 wins out of their backup quarterback.
Oh, it's 2 big wins, and Tennessee probably wishing they would have kept him instead of Will Levis, as Will Levis has just given the ball to the other team on a regular basis. I mean, I find it pretty impressive, Bill, that you can have 3. I don't even know if the one was a pick 2 weeks ago. It may have been a fumble that was airborne that was just took back to the house, but 3 off defensive scores provided by your quarterback in any given game. Big college football weekend, and as always, like you think you know where it's going to go, and then it usually gives you a hard right turn. Kind of your biggest thing or a couple of things that you saw coming out of this, I guess, week 4, week 5 weekend.
Well, I mean, out of the 4 ranked games, I think I got 3 of them wrong. I got Nebraska wrong against Illinois. Illinois really played up front, played well. I got Michigan USC wrong, whereas I would argue that was more entertaining football game than good football game. There was a lot of wildness that happened in the second half. I got Kansas State wrong, but at the end of the night, I did get Tennessee right. And I think Tennessee was one of my big takeaways from the weekend. They play offense. We know about Nico Iamaleava and their run game. Run game got shut down. So how did they win down in Norman? They won with their defense. And even larger, they knocked Jackson Arnold out of the game. He gets benched. And now Oklahoma is starting somebody over their 5-star quarterback. And you guys know how that works. Once that happens, it's a safe assumption that at the end of the season, if not sooner, Jackson Arnold will probably be in the portal at some point if he doesn't get that starting job back.
So what did we learn? I mean, you interviewed Miller Moss going into that game. let's do two things because we got some big matchups this week. Not necessarily Michigan, right? They got Minnesota, big new kickoff. But what do we learn about Michigan's identity that will help them win games in the future? And then what do we learn about Illinois that really caught your eye? Because Tennessee and the Oklahoma offense, like I'm still suspect on them, right? But Tennessee showed up, especially playing in Norman. What do we learn about Michigan and what do we learn about Illinois?
Illinois has a good quarterback, Luke Altmaier.
Yeah,
he stayed in there. I still like Dylan Raiola. I just think he's young. That was a game where you're playing a pretty aggressive front. We know that Brett Bielema can win up front. He did that at Wisconsin. He knows how to do that kind of meat and potatoes formula. I'm really interested, Schlegel, to see what they do at Penn State this weekend.
Yes.
The last time they played out there, they played 9 overtimes. He made a comment about the whiteout this week. He's feeling confident. And then Michigan, I guess we learned that the running game can work. The lack of a passing game is going to catch up with them if they don't figure something out. Maybe some of that was they didn't have Colston Loveland. I think they're using Khalil Mullins. They need to give him the ball 20 times a game. He's their version of Hassan Haskins from a couple years ago. Defense is pretty good. We'll keep them in games. But if they don't develop that passing attack, they will lose to Oregon. They could lose to Washington. I'm not ruling out Indiana. Indiana's probably the best story in the Big Ten right now, honestly. Yeah. Of course, with an Ohio Bobcat playing quarterback for them. But the way that they've been able to attack this season with 𝗟𝗓𝗓, that's a dangerous team when you look at their point differential. So, long story short, Michigan, they could still lose 3 or 4 games if they don't figure out the passing attack, but they will be in every game they play.
It was interesting, like you said, Bill. I mean, I'll give Sharon more credit. I mean, they did not waver off what they did. They didn't really try to throw it. We're just going to be better at you than running the ball. And even in a 2-minute situation, we'll just keep pounding away until we crack one. They ultimately did. They get down inside the red zone, which if you're going to ask Michigan to just simply play a red zone game, they were going to beat you at that. They can run the ball very effectively. Maybe not quite as good as last year, but heck, they're pretty darn close. What does that say to you about USC? Because I was down at LSU this weekend. I'm watching them play UCLA, which, to your point about Curtis Rourke and the Indiana Hoosiers going out there and just bludgeoning them. UCLA playing with LSU then this week, and USC doesn't look very good. Is it possible? Do we overrate that early game? And what does this say about USC and where we thought they were at?
Well, maybe a touch. And that I still think they belong. It was a fun game to watch from the standpoint of, with all the realignment questions, it was pretty cool to hear tribute of Troy in Michigan Stadium. I thought that was neat, the realignment matchup. Looking forward to when they play the Buckeyes. I believe that's next year, and the pageantry that will come with that. USC plays Penn State. I still think they're good in position to maybe make a playoff run if they take care of business in the 2 big home games against Penn State and Notre Dame. And they have to look good doing it. There is still some questions about the run defense. I mean, if you're a USC fan, you're probably sitting there on 3rd and 1. How did we give up a 57-yard run in this situation late in the game? How are we giving this up when we know they can't pass? But it was a decent win or decent showing by the Trojans, showing that they belong in this new look Big Ten.
So back to your point about Indiana, Rutgers had a big win too this week, right? They're 3-0. Yeah. They start this week versus Washington. We already talked about Rutgers' schedule. I'm kind of surprised that Indiana isn't ranked based on how well they've looked. But again, Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers, and Washington this week. Who are you thinking that could elevate their status in the Big Ten from those two?
I think Indiana's right there. And Rutgers obviously beating Virginia Tech, and they're pretty good up front. Their schedule's friendly, like you mentioned. There was a reason why Kirk Herbstreit kind of pegged them as a preseason sleeper. You look at the schedule, you take care of business. We do that in the Big Ten every year where we kind of look at, okay, which is the team that's not playing Ohio State and Michigan? What's that schedule look like? And then that team inevitably loses a couple games, but so far so good for Rutgers and Greg Schiano. That's another wrinkle to this Big Ten race. I'm buying some stock in Indiana with 𝗟𝗓𝗓. I just don't know if they can do it over 12 games. I think Curtis Rourke, having a veteran quarterback in there who distributes the ball the way he does, definitely makes them an interesting team. But Washington's somebody that could pick off anybody on any given week, so we'll see if it happens this week.
We got a couple big matchups coming up this week with a couple teams that are going to pair off, kind of pseudo ACC matchup, and then a Big 12 matchup that we'll get to after the break. I'm going to start with the first half of that ACC matchup. Notre Dame beating Miami, Ohio. Still not really throwing the ball all that well, Bill. Running the ball pretty effectively. Riley Leonard, I mean, they kind of look like Michigan-esque, maybe a little bit more explosive and a little more depth in the passing game. But, I mean, is this going to be their formula moving forward? And will this formula work the rest of the season?
It won't work this week if they can't throw the ball against Louisville. That's a really good team that Jeff Brom has. And he's one of the best coaches in college football. I'm sold after what he did at Purdue and what he's been able to do at Louisville the last 2 years. Tyler Shaw, his quarterback, no interceptions, has taken 1 sack. And they just played a physical Georgia Tech team and were able to beat them and looked impressive doing it. And this is a Louisville team that beat Notre Dame last year. So they're going to go into Notre Dame Stadium confident. You're going to need to see more out of Riley Leonard throwing the football. We all know he can run, break that big run. It's mental errors and special teams, and that starts to add up. I don't know, Bobby. Maybe they should stop scheduling MAC teams because they always look sloppy in the first half against these MAC teams. So, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. I do think it'll be a really fun, competitive game. But if they play like they've played the last couple of weeks, Louisville will go up there and beat them.
So you mentioned Louisville going in and beating them. And, I mean, assuming that happens, like, to me, Notre Dame, I mean, there's been a lot of flux. I still think there's a pathway for them to get to the playoff. But this, with Louisville being good, this almost appears to be a must-win on their schedule. Like, if they need a win of consequence, this is going to be the one potentially before USC.
Right. And they have to look good doing it because USC, I don't know where we mentioned those games, but what if USC loses to Penn State and slips up? I think Wisconsin's going to go out to the Coliseum and give USC at least a run for a half. And with that physical way that they play on defense. So you're absolutely right. This is a huge stage for Notre Dame. I think aside, there's another huge game Saturday evening. This is the second most important game of the weekend because if Notre Dame loses, you can pencil them out of the college football playoff, which is exactly the opposite of what I was saying about a month ago.
All right, a little more news in the ACC, some Big 12 stuff, Bill, before we get to the Buckeyes. We'll get more of that with you and catch up with Bill Bender here after the break.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
They're off in the Kentucky Derby as Authentic takes them around the far turn. Tis the Laws making his move now, and they're into the stretch. These two stride for stride. Authentic, tis the Law. Here's the wire. Authentic has won the Kentucky Derby.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
Welcome back in the show. If you're watching on YouTube or social media, please like, subscribe, leave comments. We appreciate all that. We will get back to you and integrate them into the show. If you're watching on Bally's, thank you as well. And as always, we've got Bill Bender here on Tuesdays of the Sporting News. Please give him a follow on X at Bill Bender 92. Does a great job there for all of your college sports, NFL needs. He's doing it all at the Sporting News. Utah, Oklahoma State ended up being a close game. I thought if Cam Rising didn't play, it was going to swing towards the Cowboys. Apparently, the Utes had other things in mind, played a tough slobber knocker game, end up coming with the win, big win on the road. You combine that with Kansas State losing to BYU and what was surely a surprising outcome. I mean, is Utah clearly the team to beat now in the Big 12?
I think so. And you two should love it. I mean, the Big 12, the three best teams right now are winning with defense, running the football, old school ball. I mean, between what Utah was able to do, there was a play, Bobby, in the first half of that game where Isaac Wilson, the brother of Zach, turned the corner, 3rd and 4. You're thinking, okay, he's going to go out of bounds. No, he put his shoulder down, got a first down. And I kind of thought that's Utah football right there. And they were able to win on the road in impressive fashion. BYU took Kansas State apart, a couple turnovers. And you guys know how that feels too. 19 to 22-year-olds couple fumbles late in the half, and all of a sudden that snowballed on the road for them. And then I think the other team in the Big 12, Iowa State, they've taken care of their business so far. They're playing tough defense under Matt Campbell. So for all the perception that that's that wide open, throw it all the time conference, winning with running the football, defense, not turning the ball over is winning right now.
Yeah, now you got Oklahoma State and Kansas State coming, both hard losses. This is a must-win game for them and how they fit themselves into what this Big 12 looks like of the teams that you just mentioned. How do you see that one going? Because, I mean, just getting beat. I played at BYU before. One, beautiful campus. Two, volleyball team, quite attractive. Three, you just got absolutely beat down. Right? You got to remember, when I went there and played, I was a freshman freshman cadet at the Air Force Academy. So, anyways, that being said, how do you think it's going to go down this weekend between Oklahoma State and K-State?
Yeah, I think running the football. Can Oklahoma State get it going with Ollie Gordon? They have not run the football well at all, which is a big surprise considering they had all the guys up front back. And some teams are stacking the box, but some of it's execution. And then Kansas State, you live with the mistakes a young quarterback like Avery Johnson makes because of his playmaking ability, but they got away from it real quick. I mean, it was so quick how BYU gets a fumble, scores, interception, scores, had a fluky punt return, scores, and I couldn't believe it. So I think it's a coin flip matchup. Kansas State, Oklahoma State games have been competitive in the past, and the loser's probably staring at not getting in the playoff or maybe not getting into the Big 12 championship game. So I expect that those two go at it.
So Bowling Green does what Bowling Green does and keeps it tight against A&M. I think that probably if you're a Penn State fan, you maybe breathe a little sigh of relief, like, okay, it wasn't just us. Bowling Green might be one of the better teams in the MAC. You see Ohio State take care of Marshall. You mentioned Tennessee, Oklahoma. If you were to give me your kind of top 4, 5, 3, where do you think that first tier is, Bill, in both the SEC and in the Big Ten?
Yeah, we'll start with the SEC. I think they have 5 teams right now, and it probably looks like 1, Texas. So far, most complete team, taking care of business. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. 2, Georgia, coming off the bye week. They're favored against Alabama for a reason. I think they're the better team. We'll see if they can go in and win at Alabama. Number 3, with Jalen Milroe, chance to make a Heisman statement. And then 4 and 5 would be Tennessee and Ole Miss. You guys can flip the order. They're both very similar. And my Big Ten doesn't change much from last week. Ohio State, I mean, they have 2 running backs running for more than 9, combining to run for 9 yards per carry, essentially. So I've kind of tried to craft the joke. It's like Woody Hayes, 3 yards of cloud of dust times 3. When you're doing that, you're going to win a lot of football games if you can run the ball like that. 2 would be Oregon, coming off a bye week, playing UCLA. 3, Penn State. And then 4, I mean, you have to say Michigan for now, with the understanding that they have to find a passing attack if they're going to be competitive, not just this week against Minnesota, but if they can't find that passing attack, they are going to have problems when they go out to Washington next week.
Yeah, I mean, because Iowa, what was it, 31 to whatever, and just ran the football. They had over 200 yards rushing, and that's what we're finding out. Like, if you can't throw the football, you just got to run it, play great defense, because we got Iowa coming up after Michigan State. Talk to us a little bit about this Alabama-Georgia matchup that everybody's talking about. I mean, one, huge game in the SEC. You love seeing it. You got both coming off of a bye week, so they should be rested. They should be healthy. You just had Georgia go out there, play a really tough game at Kentucky. What are you feeling in this game?
It's the first big exam for Kalen DeBoer. And I say that in terms they've looked good, but you replaced a coach that was 30-15 in top 5 games. And Kalen DeBoer's 2-1 in those games at Washington, which is impressive in its own right. But you're stepping in, you're playing Georgia. The stage doesn't get much bigger than that. I believe Donald Trump's planning on going, so that adds another layer to it that people reason why people are going to be watching one way or the other. I saw the Alabama sign that said they're eating the dogs, and it had an Alabama label on it. And regardless of how you feel, that was funny. I'm sorry, that was pretty funny. And it's just a huge stage for both teams. What I'm wondering is how we feel after. In the past, when you had a mega matchup like this, there was so much on the win and the loss, especially early in the season. Now, regardless of what happens, we're going to still say, well, they'll probably both be in the playoff. It's just getting that capital in the playoff race that matters. And I still think the game's going to be awesome to watch.
I think it will be nice, Bill, from the standpoint of when the losing team in those games, it was almost like a funeral afterwards. Like there's the procession, you're like burying the season, and then you maybe try to find some glimpses of hope where, hey, if team A loses and team B loses and we win this game and this happens, we can maybe slither our way back in. But it will feel like there's more of a clear path, which I think is ultimately a good game. It'll keep people, or good thing, keep people more engaged. Ohio State beat up Marshall a little bit tight early on. Marshall put together a good drive. They've got Michigan State this weekend, and the Spartans have looked better than what we've thought. Kind of what did you take away from Saturday, and then what are you thinking for Saturday night?
Well, Marshall had a well-executed first drive. First of all, I mean, they did that well. I give Charles Huff credit. I mean, you find out a lot about those group of 5 coaches when reality hits. Are they still playing hard? Played hard for 4 quarters. And yes, Ohio State's running game was overwhelming, and they did a great job of distributing balls to the playmakers. 4 guys with touchdowns of 40 yards or more. Their offense is really good. I think that gives Ryan Day an excuse to really hammer in that they have to come out and have a fast start on the road at Michigan State, where I think they'll pull away this week. Michigan State is better than they have been the last couple seasons. Jonathan Smith, great long-term hire. Aiden Childs, talented quarterback, but they turn the ball over so much. I look for Ohio State to take advantage of turnovers. I think the running game gets going. And if, like I said, all these games that are quote-unquote heavy favorites, this is one where I think you want to throw a knockout early and emphasize what happened against Marshall early. You don't want to see that happen again, especially as the competition levels up.
Absolutely. It was a good game, like you said, game plan for Marshall. I think Marshall is a better team. I think they'll probably end up being ultimately an 8-win team this year, and that's with some difficult games, obviously, on their schedule with 2 Power 4s at Ohio State and Virginia Tech. But they played pretty darn well throughout that. So, Bill, we appreciate it on Tuesday. Thank you. Hopefully you can continue to build this into your schedule. We love having you on. Really appreciate it, and thank you for spending some time today.
Yeah, I got out of bringing the groceries in, so I appreciate you guys. We'll do it again next week. Thanks so much.
And anytime we can help you avoid housework, Bill, we're all here for you. Thank you. That was Bill Bender of the Sporting News, one of the best guys. Give him a follow at Bill Bender 92. Go follow Sporting News, follow all the stuff he puts together. All right, coming up, we've got our headlines brought to you by Affinity Whole Health. There's some good news here. Ohio State's got some big plays coming. Will Howard, Schlegel, he snuck one in for a touchdown, but it may not have felt good. We'll find out how that felt for him. Maybe how much James Madison got paid per point that they put up on the North Carolina Tar Heels. They said, give us a bag and we'll get the heck out of here. All that coming up in our headlines next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bobby Carpenter. I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Affinity Whole Health, the leaders in the testosterone replacement industry. I've been on a testosterone replacement program for a few years right now, and I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. Affinity Whole Health has allowed me to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. I loved how easy it was to get started. I booked my free consultation, met with my prescriber, checked my numbers, and Affinity Whole Health designed a program that was customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, welcome back into the show here. Bill Bender, like I said, fantastic job. As always, got about 15 minutes left in the show, Schlegel. So super excited to kind of wrap this thing up, put a bow on Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll start looking ahead to see what's happening throughout the rest of the week. And tomorrow we will have Jake Butt on Big Ten Network. Does a great job. Former Pickerington North alum, Michigan alum as well. Talk to them about their big win, what they're doing right, what's going on. What do they need to fix up in Ann Arbor, and some of the things that he's seen from across the Big Ten. So stay tuned, stay locked in for tomorrow. And we'll see if we can get our guy AJ on as well. I know we normally have him on Wednesdays. little bit, some stuff going on tomorrow. We'll see if we can kind of navigate that around and how that ultimately looks. All right. Before we go any further, though, Schlegel, Will Howard got his first rushing touchdown, I believe, as a Buckeye, correct? Am I correct in saying that? Second?
No, I think he got one. I think it was the second one because he ran to the end zone on the right side.
It's true.
The previous game.
That is true. But got a sneak, snuck one in this week. They got in the full T. They got in the T backfield, Schlegel. You're thinking, hey, who are they going to give it to? They got Trey, they got Quinshaw. Nope, they're going to sneak it with Will. My guy Tim May has been covering the Buckeyes for about 40 years. I had a phenomenal question for him in the presser pad. If we want to throw this bad boy up here, we get some audio going of what Tim said and listen to him asking Will about him sneaking one in for the touchdown.
When you get the sneak, did you get it harder from the front or the back? Because everybody wants you to score, I think.
I don't know. Pause. But I knew somebody I needed to say.
So, Schlegel, I don't know. Pause. Get hit harder from the front or the back. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Why don't you explain it for the folks?
No, the old tush push. I mean, they're saying, hey, did you hit harder from the Marshall guys or from maybe, Andy Gerd, Patrick Gerd? And I'm with you, Bob. They get up in that set, right? Patrick Gerd goes over there. They do the T. It's like they're getting their splits. And actually, I saw Trevion was like a little bit further away from the T. And I'm like, oh, I know what this is. It's going to be Q's going to be leading it for Trey, right? Patrick's going to go first. Like, I don't know how it's going to look, but kick out or I don't know. But I was like, oh, Trey's going to get this. And then they snuck it. Again, it's just a wrinkle. So though the question was, in the surroundings of society and everything that's going on in the old social world, that question came off. I'm happy that he was able to pause that and then answer the question as I don't know, because that's the appropriate answer in that, for that situation. Good for him.
He was the one that felt it, Schlegel, so he should have known. He's the only one that would have expert testimony in that situation. So
yes.
From the front, from the back, side to side, whatever it takes, Will Howard, get it done. But a funny question there. And I love that Will, so skilled, laughs it off, hits the pause, and then moves forward. All right, I don't know if you saw this, Schlegel. James Madison.
I saw it, Bob.
Absolutely just destroyed North Carolina. I think the score was 70-50, if I'm not mistaken.
70-50. They hung up 53 in the first half. They beat them so bad that people question Mac Brown retiring. That's how, if you want to talk about a beatdown, when a question comes, are you going to retire after this game? That's a beatdown.
Well, and here's the best part of it. So obviously JMU got paid to come in there. Their quarterback threw for 5 touchdowns, rushed for 2 more. They got paid $700,000. So as you say, Schlegel, stack them vertical, count them sideways. They got paid $10,000 a point to come in there and hang that on them in North Carolina, in Raleigh. I could not believe that.
Imagine what they would have done if they would have paid them 1-4. The way Notre Dame paid Northern Illinois, that'd be 140 points. I want to see that. Maybe that's the incentive. For every point that you get, we're going to put a number on it. You want 1-4, well, then go get it, Tiger. We'll see what kind of performance. Hey, boys, come here. Everybody get there. Hey, we don't care what we do this year. This is paying half our payroll, baby. Let's go. 140. We're going for 3.
And it's wild because they set up those, get paid to play games. So we've watched teams do that now, coming in, securing around $1 million, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And in doing so, they rack up the win. And so you're getting paid for a loss. That team's getting paid for a dub. And that sounds pretty darn nice to them. And we've seen this happen more this year in college football. It was amazing that they said that there would be no more upsets in college football. You're not going to see any of the Power 4 teams get beat by a group of 5 teams because they can pay more. They have more NIL. They have all these opportunities. Well, do they? I mean, we watched Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. We just watched JMU beat the brakes off UNC. Beat the brakes off them. Bowling Green took Penn State to the wire, just did the same thing with A&M, and we're in a close game playing hard. So in an era now where we talk like the sky is falling, NIL, everything's going to be crazy, all you got to do is look at some of these game Schlegs and say, holy smokes, this is a lot closer. This looks like the college football product that we always have been witnessing.
Well, think about BC and Michigan State. And, everybody stayed when Bill O'Brien came in. And, again, it's going back to veteran teams. guys that developed. I mean, you look at Ohio State. Yes, we brought in some portal guys, but the majority of the guys that are out there developed here, right? And then you can go through and selectively do that. We see teams not do it at a higher level, and they're suffering the consequences of it. That's the part of NIL. It's all business decisions, but for those power 5 teams, for the lesser power 4 teams, the more continuity, the better. And that's what's going to be able to be sustainable, especially with staffs too.
Absolutely. Schlegel. Continuity, well, that's king if you can get it done. We'll get to one more here quickly because Reggie Bush, this is some interesting news, and we might talk about this a little bit tomorrow as well. Reggie Bush was welcomed back into USC. They put his number back up that had been covered in the Coliseum. All their Heisman Trophy winners' numbers are up there. And all of a sudden now he's welcomed back in. He was out on the field leading the team. And all those things are great. You're bringing him back in. But it may not all be great in Reggie Bush land because you see, he is now filing a lawsuit, and I don't blame him, against USC, the Pac-12, which I don't know what you're getting out of them, although they do have a bunch of money that they got from everybody's exit fees, and the NCAA for NIL compensation for use of his name, image, and likeness, and especially using it while the hypocrisy of maybe when he got some cash and they said, hey, you're banned now, we're taking your Heisman and everything else. And then they're now doing all the same stuff. And so Reggie filing a lawsuit against them. I'm not sure if he'll win, but what are your thoughts on this, Schlegel? Is this a good thing for USC? Probably not, but it's probably a good thing for Reg.
Well, just reading the article, and we could probably post it on social, but it's not about, they said it's not about seeking justice for Reggie Bush, more about setting a precedent for the fair treatment of all college athletes.
Yeah.
And that's where we are at NIL and, what happened in the past and using all of our name, image, and likeness. I think that's what it's about, right? And where does that money grab go and how is it dispersed? I don't know. But I think they're just kind of getting everybody to go start looking at this, especially when they don't even know how they're going to distribute the money in 2025, Bob. So I think it's something that a lot of these things can be alleviated in the past if somebody would have just had a whiteboard at the NCAA.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Alleviate. What eliminated? I don't know. I said alleviated. I don't know.
Alleviated.
I combine words. I combine words sometimes,
Yes.
Bob. Don't worry about it.
All
I
right.
like to extrapolate things. I just like to make up words.
I do appreciate that, or maybe just slightly change them a little bit. But with that, we're going to put a pin in this. We got a break. We got tailgate talk.
Yes.
Actually, this was brought. Forgot to tell you that our headlines, they're brought to you by Affinity Whole Health. Affinity Whole Health, they do a great job for you. They've offered personalized treatment plans to help people feel better, whether you're struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep. They can help you with all of it. Affinity Whole Health provides expert guidance and support to help you safely reach your health goals. They've been helping me for 7 years, folks. They can do the same for you. They've got all of Ohio covered. Columbus, Cleveland, they're out in Indy, they're in Chicago, they're everywhere you need to be. Set up your free consultation by going to affinitywholehealth.com. Coming up next, tailgate talk. To answer your questions here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Building a home for the people who are worth it. Stepping out, throwing in a line, and dropping the tailgate for a picnic. And finding far-off campsites with the people you're closest to. Upgrade your truck, Jeep, or Bronco with over 1 million parts and accessories. And bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegs. We got a little tailgate talk. Tailgate talk is brought to you by Real Truck, the #1 in truck accessory brands in the United States. Top selling upgrades for the ultimate tailgate party, Schlegs. How about that? They're going to be tremendous for you. Our trucks are brought to life. Your truck can be brought to life as well. Just go check out realtruck.com and gear up for the tailgate season. All right, threw a comment out there. Question, what do we got as far as questions coming to you from the fans? I'm going to start with my man, Ben. This is starting about JT Tuimoloau, Schlegs.
Okay.
So the question is, Tuimoloau saving his pass rush moves for big-time competition. Bull rush seems to be his default right now. Your thoughts?
First off, guys don't save things, but it's also, if you have a guy doing a 3-step drop, how are you going to get there? Best way to do it, push the guy back into him. And depending on the defense, you got to set the edge. Can you do a swim move? Can you go inside a guy? That's predicated upon if you're running some type of stunt. So again, I think it's literally what Larry Johnson's calling, and also playing the defense the appropriate way, setting the edge, but also guys trying to throw the ball quick because they know if they have to hold it back there and give them time, they're going to get there. So what are you going to do? 1-2, ball's out the hand.
You know, it's interesting because we've watched JT have some monster games, and then you watch him play, and he's good, he's productive, but and doing his job, but maybe not getting quite the level of production as far as stats with hurries, sacks, things like that. And so if people get concerned about it, you have to stay with the process, just continue to keep grinding. And sometimes, they can get guys on the move, Schlegs. You can do some things with stunting to get them to move around. Jack Sawyer, you felt like he's played pretty well so far this year. As he continues to play well, I think that there's a lot of opportunities there that maybe he'll start getting a little more of the attention, and then maybe some stuff opens up for JT, because I've watched him pass rush against guys at Ohio State. He does a great job. He'll win regularly. He'll make plays in practice. And sometimes it's just he's getting over that little hump. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's something that I think it will happen. And he'll have they come in bunches, and hopefully once it happens for him, it'll continue to stay that way. All right. College football question also coming at us from Ben. The same part in Ben in that tweet. Who is the best football player that people aren't talking about right now in college football? I had this conversation the other day, and I know people are talking about him. And I'm a Heisman voter this year, and I try to take it very seriously. And I don't put my vote in until a couple of days before. I want to see all the games to make sure. Travis Hunter to me has been the best player in college football. I don't know if there's anyone else out there that could be, one of the top players at their position at corner, and then also probably an all-conference level player at another position, and have the conditioning to be able to go through and do it all. And so while we can talk about some other guys out there, and Boise State's running back, he's been playing really well. His name's escaping me right now off the top of my head. There's been guys that, have done some really good things. I think it's going to be hard to turn away from a guy who they're not really on that TV that much anymore. I mean, Colorado's on playing Baylor, but I think he's got to be the best player right now in college football, and that's regardless of position, because he plays too.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on Travis Hunter, because that's an anomaly. And Coach Prom's like, no, he has to play both ways. You'll get other people like, no, he's just so fluid at a corner. That's what he's got to be. You just got to let him be what he be. So that's a great one. The guy you're talking about, Ashawn Genty, Boise State running back, fantastic. I'm just going to keep him in the Big Ten, because we got, and the reason I say this, because we got Indiana later in the year, right before we play Michigan.
Curtis
the way
York.
they've been, yeah, I just think nobody's talking about. They're 4-0. They got a good schedule.
Curtis York, their quarterback, is really good. I mean, he
is.
I watched him at OU, at Ohio University. He's a really talented player. He's done some good things, and people are finally seeing that now over there in Bloomington. But
I just said nobody's talking about him. But I like your
that is true. Nobody is talking about him. People are talking about Travis Hunter. Your answer is correct. All right, we'll put a pin in that. We've got final segment coming up. Schlegs' parting thoughts after this. All right, Schlegel, got about 1 minute left.
Ooh.
You got any parting thoughts for us before we get on out
Yeah,
of here?
yeah. There was a great deal on IG. It was on one of our things, and somebody was talking about the grass isn't always greener.
Well,
and hey, how about
tomorrow? We still got it.
You want to save it? All right, again, I won't do that. But here's another thing, just talking about guys' developments, and everybody wanted to pigeonhole something. We see this in baseball. They're either a pitcher or they're an infield, outfield type guy, or they're a hitter. Listen, parents out there.
Schlegel, you always told me be that switch hitter. Do
What's
a little
that?
both. Be that switch hitter. Do it from both sides.
What I'm saying is, like, let them develop, man. Like, you don't know where a kid's going to be at 10 years old by the time they hit 18. You don't know what that kid's going to be in the league. We have some tells. We see what they can do. The thing that I like about Travis Hunter probably the most, besides the fact that he is an anomaly. The amount of high-speed distance, I don't even know, but total yardage that he does on a week-in and week-out basis, the discipline that's required to take care of his body, that in and of itself is pro level. But just guess what? Let's stop worrying about what he's going to be next year, and let's just appreciate what he is now. But looking at all the kids that we have developing, hey, is he a lineman? Or he should play DN or whatever. Guys, let him just go out there, teach him the fundamentals of the game, teach him to be competitive, and then help them mature and grow and let them become what they need to become.
Sounds good. Parting thoughts from Schlegel. Big show tomorrow. Jake Butt joining. See if we can get AJ, wrestle him up. Stay tuned. Stay locked in here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.